Alrighty. So, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to do this interview in what will hopefully be a series of reoccurring interviews to help introduce the populace to the Knights of Westmarch. Westmarch is huge. We have a lot of people all over the place, and I know from recent conversations, people are like, "Oh yeah, it's a 2-hour drive," and I have to explain, no, Los Angeles is not 2 hours away from wherever else we are. It's a bit of a mess.
Oh no, those poor
So
fools.
I don't know if you know, the Iron Kingdoms has only 3 parks, and
Yeah,
it was
very
it was
small.
pretty cool. So for those who don't know you, I have Sir Lord Halavere. Is it still Blackraven?
Yes.
Okay, it wasn't on the orcs. I wanted to make sure. Master
Oh no,
Owl,
I'm bad at updating my work.
got it. Master Owl, Serpent Knight, and actually one of the ones that first came up, I really was curious about, just going off the orc before we even go into introductions, was you had a custom award I hadn't seen before called Plague Doctor. How did you get that?
So that was something that I believe Kaya came up with during the pandemic. The plague doctor were people who were still out performing necessary jobs during COVID,
Oh, cool.
and having to interact with the general public and plague doctor stuff.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
funny. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
obviously huge tragedy, but glad that
Yeah.
we were able to find the
I
logo
wish there
solves.
was a
And
cooler story behind it, of course, because it's
yeah,
a dope
I mean,
name.
what was it that you were doing at the time?
I work with adults with developmental disabilities.
Oh,
Um, so my job during that time entailed um, I would go to their house. I would essentially do wellness check-ins a couple times a week when we weren't working remote. I would bring them like snacks and craft supplies and stuff. Talk with them, see how they were doing, talk with their families, their houses,
cool.
and just kind of like keep that uh, social social connection with our clients.
Cool. Well, what little off topic, but I just figured, hey, I've never seen that title, never seen that award. Figured it was an interesting one. So,
Yeah.
is there anything else I missed in Sir Lord Halavere Blackraven?
Uh, I don't normally dive too much into it.
Sure. Cool.
But I guess the only other thing you'd add in would be Walker in the Middle.
Oh, I don't think I saw that on there. So cool. Walker in the middle. I
Might be
will
in the
add that.
awards section, not in the title section.
Yeah, because there's like those two camps of like, well, Walker in the middle is for one thing, but Paragon Reeve is for a different thing, and I always forget which one is tournaments, which one's battle games. But awesome. So when did you start playing Amtgard, and what brought you into the game?
I started playing Amtgard. I want to say April of 2015. I had previously been at a party with some friends, and this was right after Belial Peaks was founded. Um, and one of the guys there was one of the members. He's like, "Hey, dude, you should totally come out and do this LARPing thing. You're a huge nerd. You would love it." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna do that." And then I didn't. Um, I completely ghosted him. But I went to a party again the next weekend, and he was there again. So I'm like, "Oh well, I can't do it twice."
All right.
So I showed up at the park shortly thereafter, and yeah, no, it was immediate click. A lot of really cool people, many of whom I am still very very close with to this day.
Oh, for sure. And so far been a theme that I've noticed is a lot of people like the people. So,
Yeah.
what kept you coming back?
What kept me coming back was first it was a sort of a physical outlet that I didn't have previously. I was and still am to a degree a very out of shape individual. So getting to come out and soak up some sunlight and run around at a park, well, it made me feel miserable the first couple of weeks out because I was just so out of shape. It was eventually a good thing for me, and then further learning on about sort of the more in-depth aspects besides just battle gaming, like the crafting and the leadership, and again the people. Obviously,
Mhm.
it created a welcoming environment and outlet that I didn't have previously.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think building that sense of community is a really important thing. I think that's what keeps most people coming back. I'm sure some people are like, those want to go out and hit some nerds. It's kind of how when I tell people about it, I was like, well, I'm a nerd. I used to do some fencing stuff, so it lets me hit nerds. And but that's just the introduction. So
Yeah.
I think one of the first things everyone does in Amtgard is, and this is what I'm going to try to ask, is how'd you pick your name?
So I picked it. Honestly, I would have a different name if I didn't misread the rulebook originally. I thought that this was back when Paladin and Anti-Paladin were still exclusive classes to Knighthood. And when I read Knight in the requirements for it, I thought that was just a roleplay thing. I just thought I had to write that in my backstory that I was a knight. So I chose one of the god of strategy from a pantheon I had written for D&D, who was named Halavere. So I'm like, okay, I'll just yoink this name, and then it fits. And then someone told me, like, no, you can't actually do that. You know, a knight's an actual thing. I'm like, oh, it was obviously week one. I didn't know. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just stick with it. It doesn't really fit too well for an archer in my own head, but hey, it's a name.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember I brought one of my friends out until he was like, oh yeah, I want to go by Sir Greenwood. And I was like, awesome name, man. Can't call you a sir. And he was like, oh, dang. But it was, yeah, I know
A
that.
couple years.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, I like that. He's a really good friend. And then I noticed there were a couple of them on the orc. I don't know if there's any relation. What about Blackraven?
So Blackraven is the familiar name for everyone, and well, obviously the Blackraven family, but in Zyax is Beltline.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's not just like a chosen surname. It is passed on through either adoption or birth. So if Zyax does have a kid. Zyax has Caesar, and when Caesar was born, he was automatically a Blackraven. I was not born to Zyax or Rax or Rog, who are like the three heads of the Blackraven family. They each have their own individualized symbol. It's obviously the bird on the front,
Right.
but each has a distinct like signifier. Like Rog's is an axe in two corners of a shield. Zyax's is just the bird, and then Rax's is two fish. So like it's like three different branches of the Blackraven family. I was adopted by Rax into the Blackraven family.
Cool. I had no idea that was a thing people did. And I'm part of a belted family, but that not in the same way. So I definitely that's cool to hear. I remember looking it up and I was like, wow, there's like that's a weird name for someone just to kind of pick. There must be a
Yeah.
connection there. Where does Zyax play out of? Or do you know?
Zyax. So
I don't think I've ever met any of the other Blackravens.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a second to talk a little, since I believe history was part of one of the things you want to talk about. I'm gonna talk about a little bit of history.
Sure.
Zyax, my knight, started playing in '83. He is Amtgard's 13th knight out of the entire game. He's the 13th knight made. He is the last member of the Round Table, which were the original 13 knights. So he started playing out of El Paso when the game was first founded. And he's moved around a lot during the years. He took a big break, and now he's out here in California, technically out of Seven Sleeping Dragons.
I has he come to any of the recent events? I feel like I would have met this.
Yeah, he's at every event. He's just kind of he's a little bit of a homebody. He likes to stay at camp and hang out.
Got it. Well, now I have someone to look for and potentially add to the interview list. That sounds like a good one. So
he has a lot of stories.
I'm sure. Oh gosh. I mean, as I was telling you before I started recording, but I was just out of Arrakis, and a lot of it was just me sitting down and listening to like a 5-belt knight talk about some stuff, and I was like, dude, you see this at a different level. You've been.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Travel's so crucial to like getting a real deep understanding of the Amtgard community as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw.
Absolutely.
And like Ost would like pull me over, say, "Hey, Delu, there's this sword knight. You're gonna fight him for 30 minutes." And I was like, "Awesome!" And like couple minutes later, they were like, "Oh, yeah, here's what you're doing wrong." Like one of them just said, "Take a stance," and then immediately said three things about my stance, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm getting I'm gonna get one for 30 minutes here." But it was a lot of fun to do it all the same. What was your first major goal in Amtgard?
Um, my first major goal, honestly, I didn't start with a whole lot of goals in mind. Um, I think I always my first real goal that I can put a point to was I didn't really ever intend on reaching any sort of like formal knighthood or anything. I wanted to just be really good at stuff. I wanted to be good at most things to a degree that if I were to enter a tournament, I could cause problems for people. If I were to be on a battlefield fighting, I would be a nuisance. Just like these things. Um, but I didn't outwardly come with a lot of like super lofty goals. I just spent a lot of time enjoying being part of the community. Um, so that's kind of where I was at.
Cool. Uh, what was in that case? What was kind of the biggest challenge, or what was the area that you need to improve the most to become a nuisance, a threat, a person of repute in?
Um, so one of the biggest things I had to overcome was, and I think this could strike true for a lot of people who play Amtgard, is a level of social awkwardness. I had spent much of my formative years on online video games, and they had turned me into a not fantastic person. As things like that tend to do. um,
Mm-hmm.
so the socialization and meeting just so many different kinds of people, people who I never would have met otherwise, like that really sort of tempered the fire in me and kind of turned me into the person I am today. Um, and the next thing I had to overcome is something that I still struggle with overcoming now is impatience. Um, I am so horrendously impatient. So doing things and picking up new skills, it requires a lot of singular focus, which I just can't do. I need 2 to 3 sources of like stimulation just to get work done. Um,
Mm.
it is a really really bad case of ADHD. So like overcoming those two were sort of like the big first steps to me really starting to make some headway into being to reaching the level I am today and being the sort of person I am today.
Cool. No, I mean that's really cool, and I think for those who haven't listened to the conversation with Spade yet, talking about the importance of that culture was a huge thing for him, and I think it really is a great thing to focus on. So, when did you start pushing for knighthood?
I started pushing for knighthood when I got belted to Zyax originally. Um, I
Do you
am
remember when that
his
was?
only school. Huh?
I was gonna say, do you remember when that was?
Um, it was after I received my full bird to become a member of the Corsairs.
Mm.
So 2019. So probably like summer 2019 is when I got the white or the not the white belt, sorry, the red belt from Zyax, and I realized that he's been around for so long. His tree stands very tall without many branches. Um, I think I'm his only squire who's received a knighthood. And my big driving goal to become a knight was that his tree deserved to continue growing. So, I now have my squires and my squires have their underbelts, and I want, that tree to flourish because I think Zyax, for all he's done for the game and for all the time he's put into it, he deserves sort of that continuation of legacy.
Awesome. I think that's really a good way to think about it, and a cool way to see knighthood not only as a personal achievement, but as an achievement for really the game. That's huge. Uh, so let's see. That took you got belted last 2 years ago now, right? Or
Yeah.
two Dark Shores? Was it 23 or 24?
It was Bomb 23.
Got it. So yeah, about a year and a half now. That's been pretty awesome. And what do you think the biggest barrier to crossing that finish line was?
Um, I think perseverance is probably one of the biggest things. There's something I've noticed within our community, and it's to no one's fault, or I think it's sort of more of a social thing, is that Amtgard either is really good at giving out the recognition that people deserve, or they're really bad at it. There's kind of no middle ground, um, and you sort of, depending on how well known you are, is whether people will see that the growth you're having throughout whatever process it is that you're performing. Um, so for me, it was I had been a member of Monarchy. Obviously I'm very outspoken. I've known a lot of people who I've never met who have known me just on first meeting. They've already known me. So I had my name out there, which meant it was very easy for me to show people my work and get sort of that public eye on the things that I do. Um, whether it was my weapons or my blacksmithing or any of those things. It was pretty easy for me to get eyes on those, but like that's kind of the biggest hurdle is the actually getting recognized part, I think, because we have incredibly talented members throughout the kingdom, and some of them, whether through their own wishes or not, like Ubrick, very talented individual, hates recognition. Doesn't want awards, doesn't want anything to do with that, which I mean is commendable. He just wants to do stuff and make cool stuff. Um, and then you have people who are maybe just less known who are putting out fantastic work. Um, I think Lady Bridget is one of those people who does incredible amounts of work. She does incredible things for not just her park, but for the parks around her. But because she isn't like super active on like a kingdom level, or in the kingdom eye, like she's sort of a local hero. So like everyone around knows who she is and what she does, but like she doesn't have that mainstream recognition. So like
Yeah.
overcoming overcoming the loudness of the crowd to be seen is what I think is one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people face.
Yeah, and I think you and I have talked about this in person, and I know something that my knight Atano was recommending was, hey, just like all those side projects you're doing at home, just start posting them. Just like start making posts on Facebook and show that, hey, I've been brewing all this time, or I've been working on foam craft, and just show, hey, I'm not just showing up with one thing. I've done it 6 times in a row at home, and I've made it perfect this time, and here's my lessons. So
That's
that's
why
good.
that's why I enjoy seeing like your brewing stuff when you post it on like the LARP arts page.
Hmm.
Reckless is another person who started doing that more of, and
Oh,
it's great to see Reckless's work. It's just
oh,
like just getting all your stuff out there and just showing it off. Like that's the key. I've entered one arts and sciences tournament in my entire Amtgard career, and that was simply to qualify back when we still had quals. Um, like I have zero interest in having my work. Not that I have interest. I don't have interest in people seeing my work and having it judged. But I find that with more esoteric crafts, people don't have the skill set to judge them correctly. So it's fine. I want to just show my stuff off. I'm gonna make it anyways. I'll just show it to you. Like we don't need to get judging involvement or anything like that. You know.
side notes for those who haven't seen Reckless's work, some of the best leather work I've ever seen in my
Oh,
life.
so good.
And go
He's
find
so
it.
new
It's
too.
yeah. And the other thing, uh, players who haven't been around as long, we used to have 7 submissions for ANS, and also I believe do the fighting tournament in order to be in Monarchy. It's been a
Well,
minute
yeah,
since
to be
we.
Monarch, it was like seven. It was like 7 and 5, I think. So you had to have
Yeah.
7 categories and all five fighting. For a champion, it was like 3 and 5, and for a region, it was like 10 and 3 or something
Yeah.
like that. Something
Yeah.
fluid
Basically,
like that.
guys, Falls was not super fun. You forced yourself to do a bunch of crafting, and it wasn't super applicable to being a monarch or any part of the. We don't have it
Yeah,
anymore. If you have your
yeah. It's,
hydras,
it's probably a
enjoy your
good thing.
hydras. Yeah, because it ends up pushing some people out of like, well, I want to. I'm good at the political stuff. I don't. Maybe you don't like crafting. Uh, But yeah, really, really cool. So, what goals do you have from here? What is Sir Halavere working on today?
So what Sir Halavere is working on today is I have had a vision in my mind for a long time to completely move us as a kingdom away from pop culture stuff. So when we have like themed reigns, and it's like, oh, we had an 8-bit themed reign, or we have like a Game of Thrones themed reign. I hate that stuff. I really do.
Really?
We are a fantasy game. What's stopping us from just creating our own lore and having Westmarch centric reigns? People can make maps of their parks. We can make an overall map of the kingdom. We can add stuff, and we can just do what's happening, much like you would run a D&D campaign in your own custom world in Westmarch. So my big goal right now is first to introduce sort of uh, local rain themed stuff in my own park. I'm doing that as GMR right now. We're running what is kind of a background rain theme in conjunction with the Always the Quest stuff that Caden brought us and that Zacian does so well. So I want to start doing that locally, but when I have the mental wherewithal to run for Kingdom again, I want to really start pushing for us to have more of that Kingdom centric rain theming. And I have goals. I want, there's like this, that, and the other. There's a lot of stuff that I plan on doing. Like getting an overall map of Westmarch, having every park come up with their own park map, that incorporates people's backstories and where they're from and all that good jazz, and get that all plotted out. Running a full themed reign with things just happening in Westmarch is sort of an example of this is how we can do it. And, just sort of moving us away from the more pop culture stuff. So Kyle right now, Sir Halavere wants more immersion in his LARP. Um, put him on the cross for that. But
Yeah. And no, I mean I get it. Like I sometimes I like the themes, sometimes I don't. I'm generally on top of most of them, but for this most recent one, not that I have anything against Legend of Five Rings, I know nothing about the lore, and I was just like, I don't really have time to devote 10 plus hours to learn what each clan's goal is and every historical battle they've ever had to fully get it.
yeah,
And I mean, I enjoyed the theme. I thought, cool, we're doing something uh, with the kami. That seems like a cool flavor, but I just couldn't get it. I just didn't have the time for the lore, and I feel like I missed out on it. So I like the idea of bringing us back a little bit into Amtgard is Amtgard. We've got some pretty awesome lore of our own, and we should stick with it.
absolutely.
Let's see. So for you then, what would be in your history playing Amtgard, what would kind of stand out as your all-time favorite memory?
It's I feel like this would probably be the similar answer if you asked any Corsair, but receiving my bird was probably my most favorite memory within this community. Um, for a small lesson for anyone who doesn't know, to become a member of the Corsairs, you have to receive 100% yes vote from the entire company, which means
Wow.
everybody in the company has to agree that, hey, you're one of us. Granted, the stipulation of that is they have to show up to the voting event to do so.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes a no can be carried, but that's rare. If they don't agree with the no, they're not going to carry it. Um, so yeah, I had to get the approval of everyone in my company. I had people from Texas fly out, Grim all the way from like Minnesota or wherever he is now. So there's a lot of people here from all over the country. Um, so after, and granted, I had a very short tenure as a maggot. It was less
Is
than a
that is
year.
that is that what they're called?
Yeah. Our pledges are maggots.
Nice. Do you know
Yeah,
what
my,
the average what's the average tenure if you only had a short one?
ooh, that depends. It really depends on the maggot. Some people don't even have to maggot. Some people were just like, you're it. Some people are like me, less than a year. I believe Sylvie was about a year. You got some people who were like 5+ years. I think the longest I've heard of was 7.
Wow.
But I've also heard that there was one back in the 90s who was like 14 because he took a big break from the game. He just refused to give
Oh,
back the maggot favor when he left.
makes sense.
So when he showed back up, he's like, "I'm still a maggot." But yeah, so it could be. It really just depends on the person and your own level of growth and on all that stuff. Um, so yeah, so it was receiving that support from the people I consider family was pretty great. If we're talking less, more directly Amtgard, I think one of my favorite experiences was my first out of kingdom event, which was Clan or Crowns, Gathering of the Crowns 2018.
Mm.
Um, and just seeing the sheer level of what exists beyond the Westmarch borders, because the game's entirely different once you get out of our kingdom.
Oh, for sure.
There's there's like such a different depth of knowledge and skill, and it's not saying that like it's a better depth of knowledge, but it's different. It's like swimming in a pool and swimming in a river. It's
Mm.
very different. The world exists. The world of Amtgard exists so differently throughout every different kingdom. So like just Gathering of the Crowns, for anyone who doesn't know, is like where all the kingdoms come together to decide rules and stuff. So like you get that melting pot effect of like all the kingdoms, So it's
Yeah.
just like you see a little bit of everything. So that was kind of an eye opener for me. The worst part about that was going into the single sort tournament and then immediately getting put against Rourke.
Oh
Um,
boy.
so,
That's
yeah,
that's
I
also
drove 2
frustrating.
states away to fight a guy from my own kingdom.
Yeah, that's
Wonderful.
that's unfortunate. That was actually kind of another like I was just saying I went to my first inter kingdom or out of kingdom event too, and they did just a straight up or double elimination tournament, or and they
Yeah.
broke it up into 1 to 3, 4, 7, 8s and above, and it was like very efficient, and I got a bunch of quick fights in, and I was like, oh, different because population's a little smaller with only 3 parks. Like for us, we kind of have to do a bear pit because otherwise, sometimes you just feel bad of like first get your first draw and you're fighting Rourke day one. It's not always the easiest thing. So yeah, you started 3 years later. You went out. So then one other part of the going even deeper into the game here. Well, do you have a favorite highlight from a battle game
Um,
tournament?
yeah, back when I was still battle gaming a lot more, I primarily play assassin, and one of my favorite things to do is I'll occasionally just like join the enemy team and fight with them for a little bit. Um, so I'll go and I'll do a little fox in the hen housing. I'll kill a bunch of people on the edge, and then I'd like go around behind an enemy line, and then I just join them in the line and fight against my own team. I would fake a wound, step back, and then just like back the line after I got bored of it. Um, I've done it a couple times. Uh, I remember it was like right pre-COVID, the last Dark Shore pre-COVID. Um, I uh, I had I had Bacchus on my butt the whole time. He was playing healer, and I just kept hearing, "Don't let him get to the back line. Don't let him get to the back line." Eventually, he had to stop paying attention to go do something else. To go do his healer stuff, as a good healer does. I got to the back line, and so I walked up behind him, and I'm like, "Hey man, how are things going?" He's like, "Oh yeah, this is pretty rough." He's like, "Isn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is pretty rough, isn't it?" He's like, "Yeah, no, we're getting pushed real hard." Then he looked over. He's like, "Oh no!" And I just started stabbing him.
That's
And
pretty.
it's
That's
just
pretty
like
good.
it's fantastic. My favorite. I feel that battle games are a lot more entertaining and enjoyable for me when I don't when I just I take them less seriously. It's just in a world where battle games get taken very seriously and people get very heated. I just want to goof around. Like that's and I have the most fun when I get to do that. Um,
I I fully yeah. That's pretty good. And uh, for the people in Westmarch who don't know Bacchus, because he's been out for a little bit, Paragon healer outside of Halavere, one of the most premier and I don't want to make any comparisons on who's better. Both of you are premier weaponsmiths and shieldsmiths and just homesmiths in general.
Incredible. Yeah, he's an incredible craftsman.
I bought a shield from him a couple years ago, still perfect, and yeah, he does a lot of good stuff. Hopefully, I think I've heard he's coming back to Fog, maybe. So I don't want to.
Cool.
I don't want to make rumors. I feel like I heard someone say that recently. I'd love to have him come back. And you started talking about this a little bit earlier. You are part of the Corsairs. So how did you first hear about them, and when did you know, hey, I want to get in that company?
So I first heard about the Corsairs probably about a year in. I had after my first event, which was Fall Olympiad. That was my first event.
Wow, we haven't had an Olympiad, which that's a different conversation, but
yeah, it is. But yeah, my first event was Fall Olympiad. And no, it was the Fawn before that. Yeah, it was Fawn before that. It was a normal Fawn. Scratch that.
Oh.
Either way.
You went to a fall event.
Yeah, fall event. It was the 2015 Feast of Mars. I know I missed the first Dark Shore, just because I couldn't afford it at the time. But the next one, so yeah, that Feast of Mars. I had become pretty close friends with some of the Corsairs, and I'd met a lot of people at that event who are now very, very close to me. But it was immediately between like 52, Cram and Chad. Like those were like the three that I met and I started getting really close with. And it started squabbling back and forth between Corsairs and Odinmoder, who they would wanted me to join. Chad introduced himself by stabbing me in the dick, as Chad is wont to do. And so like I started to get to know them a bit better. They did some invasions towards my park, and I saw them at like mid-rains and coronations and all that stuff. I started getting to know them a bit better, and I had just at that time left on pretty less than fantastic terms with a local fighting company that isn't around anymore. So I had been kind of like put off of the idea of just getting that close to a commitment again. So they had asked me several times if I would like to mag it up and join, and I kept saying no, it's just not really my thing. But eventually, Caliban, me and him, also very close friends. He's like, hey, dude, I'm magging up. You should mag it up too. I'm like, you know what? Fine. If you mag it up, I'll mag it up too. So I magged it up with him, and that kind of just snowballed things to where they are now.
Awesome. Seems pretty good. And you were talking about your belted your knights, but I was curious, what do you look for in a belted family?
What I look for in my underbelts are most of the ones I have now are people who are just very, very close to me. They, one of them is Renian, who he was one of the first people I ever met in Amtgard, and he's family to me at this point. And then I have another squire. My last squire right now is Carps, and he's like the only one who I've had to who approached me under like actual like belting terms. So typically when I'm looking for someone who I want to belt, I'm looking for someone who is going to who seems to really want to grow. And like that's really all that matters to me, is that you want to grow. And I feel there's a difference between saying, hey, I want to get better at this, and then like performing the actions to actually do it. Like I need to see first that you want it, and second that you are actively going to go out and pursue it. Because I'm more than happy to give anyone advice, any time of the day. I'm happy to share my knowledge, but like there's a much closer bond when someone accepts a belt, and I need to sort of see that you really want to do something with the knowledge that I'm giving, because I'm going to invest more time in you. Obviously, I'm going to beyond just saying, hey, if you want to fix this, do this and this, but like I'm gonna be investing in your projects too. The things that you do, I get invested in. Like I want to give all the energy I can to help you get to where you want. So I need to see that. I need to see that you're going to actually do something with that. Otherwise, why am I wasting my energy? You know?
Oh, I mean, I totally get it, and I got to be in a rare situation where I approached one night and I was like, "Hey, you're getting your belt soon. Really interested in battle games? Can I? You're about to get knighted for that, Drats?" And he belted me, and then literally a couple weeks later, my then healer mentor Atano was like, "Hey, I want to belt you too," and so I'm one of the rare double squires.
You shared custody.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Again, the running joke is I'm gonna try to get a belt for each knighthood, and then we'll see. Like, sorry, a belt for each squirehood, and then we'll see what happens from there. Uh, Before I got Paragon Healer, I had talked about, okay, so I need to get an apprentice favor from every single class, but and then I got my Paragon, so I was like, there's no point for that. I'll go for the belts instead, and that'll be fun. They call me Delu 5 belts, and
It's like 2 Chainz, but more impressive.
yeah, exactly. No, that's really cool. And I think that's really like one of the main things that we'll see out of a lot of the conversations I'm going to have with these knights. Is that knights? Yeah, sometimes you want to like help people you know, but they want to see the growth too. So that's really cool. Are you still accepting belted?
1 second.
Oh,
As my TV came on, did I turn it off?
no worries.
Bearing up their waves on it. Sorry about that. Didn't know if you were picking up background noise.
Nope, I didn't hear it until you got up. But
okay,
all right.
Fantastic.
And then are you still accepting belted family members at the moment?
Maybe not directly squires, but I'm open to the idea. Again, it really depends. We have to mesh. I have to see that you want to work with the information I'm giving you. I have to trust you. I have to, because if I'm going to invite you into my belted family, I'm going to treat you like family. And I need to know that you're going to be able to handle that sort of responsibility. I tend to be a fairly intense person. So, and not strictly in a negative way, but just in like, if I make that commitment to bring you into something that is like mine or that I do, I'm going to be involved in it, and I'm gonna. So I need the person needs to be right. Otherwise, like I said, I'm happy just to give information. You don't strictly need a belt to learn from me.
Yeah, for sure.
You can message me at 2 a.m. I'm an insomniac. I'll message you back.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, your amp goes to 11, and that's pretty cool. I think one thing that usually comes up during vigils and a bunch of other things that is usually on the mind of most knights, but what does knighthood in Amtgard mean to you?
So Amtgard, or knighthood in Amtgard, Amtgard and knighthood in Amtgard. I can use my words, I promise. Means to me that it's not just another reward to me. It's a station. Like when you accept to be a knight, you accept that you're gonna uphold the values that we should be promoting within our community. You should be the person that people are comfortable approaching. You should defend the rules. You should push people within your community to grow and to be better if they want to. You should seek to help everyone reach their maximum potential. In the same vein, you should be willing to stand up for the things that are right and correct. It is very easy to be meek and just let things slide by because conflict can be difficult and scary. But I think as a member of the circle who is sworn almost unanimously in their oaths to uphold the values of Amtgard, that you should be loud, you should be boisterous, you should be vocal in both pushing for justice and pushing for people, and not just maybe not strictly people, but the game of Amtgard to advance in its own. It's like going from from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age. It's like you should be pushing it to get us into the next era of the game to a point where you might be obsolete. Like if you can get people to be better than you are, then that, I believe, is a true testament to the station of knighthood. And it gives you something to strive for after that. Because a lot of people see knighthood as reaching the top of the mountain, but it's not. There's always more. There's more mountains beyond the one that you're on. So to sort of, I guess, to condense my ramblings, because I know I tend to do that, and I apologize.
No, it's the whole point of this is to try to have conversations with people, and so usually when people ramble, they usually tell you a lot about themselves, which is good.
But yeah, so to condense my point, being a knight is being virtuous. It is standing up for what is right, what is just, even if the way that things are laid out aren't. You should be just. Even if, by the rules it says X, Y, and Z, if that's not a morally correct thing, you should be willing to stand up and say, hey, we should do something different. I believe, I don't want to say you're moral police because that gets into a negative connotation, but like, you should uphold the pillars of, knightly values, truth, justice, growth, warmth, acceptance, all those things. Like, it is not just a suggestion, it is your duty. Like, that's, I believe, when you accept a belt, you accept those responsibilities, and like, there really are no off dates.
Yeah, and I think kind of coming up for what I imagine is going to be the last question, but is there anything else about Amtgard, ANS, knighthood, assassinations that you want to share?
I think something that I would like to share is not directly related to any particular aspect of the game, but is a philosophy overall, and it is that the Amtgard community and the rules within which we operate, they will allow you a lot of personal growth. They will give you the opportunity to meet new people. It will give you the opportunity to learn things you never considered you might know. If you are open and you are willing to see the things beyond your own sort of general preconceptions, you will learn so much more than you ever could have imagined within our community. It is full of incredible people who do incredible things. Someone who joins day one may have a skill you never could have comprehended that you would get to envision in live time, in real life. It's you never know who is going to show up at your proverbial doorstep, up to your park, in plain clothes. You'll never know. So like it is so worth it to be open, be caring, be nurturing, and to foster a sense of unity within our community, because that is how we truly grow. That is how we learn things we never could have imagined, and that is how we become better versions of ourselves, is through other people. No one can do everything alone. You may have a fantastically creative mind. You may be incredibly smart. You may be incredibly fast. You may be incredibly strong. But there's someone out there who does something that you cannot possibly do without their help. And I think it is important that we as Amtgarders do our best to nurture that. And I am at my happiest when I see our community thriving. As a point of reference, a small tangent. I started when BP was founded. I was there for 2 or 3 years. Then the park more or less died out. I only recently came back fully to the park this year, and to see the level in which it's grown, all the new people who have come, who have made it just such a fantastic park, all the work put in by the various leaders who have taken the time over the years To help it get to where it is now, it has brought me so much joy. It like I might have said before we started recording,
Mhm.
I took a break from Amtgard because it was getting too serious and too consuming in my life. But coming back and seeing just the joy that people were having at Park, and their friendliness, and then just the pure kindness of it, it really reinvigorated my want to be better for the community. So I hope that everyone gets to experience that same exact feeling. And that is ultimately my biggest want for our game in our community.
I think that's pretty much one of the best goals that really anyone can have. So I will hopefully see you at Midring, which, in case anyone doesn't know, it's going to be on August 9th at the Wyvern Spur Park in the Richmond Arena. We've got full ANS, and yeah, I had a pretty good conversation with you, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.